We're building the ultimate floating home. Canal boats have been around since the 18th century. They were originally pulled along by horses, then steam, and now the diesel engine. After the railway and roads come along, these were made obsolete. But after the canals nearly closed, they were eventually kept open and people started using these for holidays and even their permanent homes.
Why am I in the intro?
That brings us to Bessie, our 40-foot narrowboat, which we've stripped back, sandblasted, painted, so we can give it a new lease of life. But first, we need to mix up some paint to get another coat on the top of our boat.
And that's because in the last episode, we only managed to get one on the boat. Now that it's all mixed up, we need to filter our paint. So I grabbed my burglary mask and used that to filter the paint. Just like the primer, we're going to start on the top of the boat and work our way down. The difference between this coat and our first coat of colour is we're actually rolling it and brushing it off, or laying it off. The reason we're doing it like this is because we want to get this paint nice and thick, because we have a plan for this paint a little bit later on in the series. So we start on the roof, laying it out with our roller and then brushing it to get rid of any of the little air bubbles. And you get a lot when you use the roller. Roof's done. Next up is the superstructure, the side of the superstructure. And even more important than the roof is the sides of our boat, because this is the most visible when it's moored up. On our last video, I asked you what is a banned vegetable from the boats, and it was a leek. But now we've got a few more things, because when we was reading the comments, apparently bananas are not meant to be on boats, and iceberg lettuce. So we're going to have to live off rice. Now that our diet's acquired, we get on with the second coat of 2-pack gloss marine paint. Before we jump onto the gunnels and the hull, we're actually going to get another coat on our bulkheads, front and back. Remember when you're painting a boat that you need to make your path clear. So I'm making sure I'm not painting anything that I need to climb over. That's why I started with the stairs and the bulkhead inside before moving out onto the gunnels. Top coat is complete, as easy as that. Our top green coat in gloss is dry, fully cured for 3 days. And now that it is fully cured, we can start looking at the bottom part, which is going to be black, but we're not going to tackle it by ourselves. We've got in a professional.
What we've got to do is mix them, because that's paint and that's what you mix into the paint. So I'll just do that, shall I?
We said a professional, we didn't say what type of professional. So we got Pete to do a bit of painting because there was no plumbing. So, because we've got a professional, Pete, what's our next plan?
I don't know what the plan of action is.
Back to the studio.
Well, I've spoken to technical and they've said if we cut into here, that's going to look rubbish. So we're going to set some little spacers with some tape like this all the way round. Get a nice even finish.
And then we're going to be doing exactly what he said, but just a little bit neater. Next job is masking off.
And we're going to be using some tape to do that.
Sometimes Pete's enthusiasm for the job is just too much to take in. but he does love it really. So me and Pete got on with taping above our little spacer marks.
How's the line looking, Pete?
Oh yeah, really straight.
If you couldn't tell yet, that is Pete's excited voice. That's about as good as it gets. We worked our way from one side all the way round to the other continuously. That way we're hoping that our line looks a lot more uniform. And this is what we ended up with. Once we was happy with our tape line, I went off and removed all of the markers. We're using orange frog tape to get our line where we're going to be doing the black. And we're using this because it's got paint block technology, apparently. So it says to run a damp cloth along this edge, and I'm hoping, yeet, that blocks it all in, because if not, frog tape have done us dirty. Paint block technology is just activating right now. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not really one to follow instructions, but on this occasion we're trying to take every step we can to make sure we don't get any of that paint bleeding through and ruining our nice new line. That is it. We've took every single step we think we can take to give us a perfect line. So I've run a cloth round, I've also used a car to push it right in, and to be fair, around the welds it wasn't holding very well, and now it's fully stuck. So fingers crossed we get a perfect line. For the black that we're going on the bottom, we're using the same 2-pack high performance marine gloss, because this stuff can be used on the bottom and on the top. And unlike the normal blacking that you see, this stuff can last up to 10 years. So whoever ends up with this boat shouldn't have to take it out of the water for quite some time.
While Phil's getting the rest of that end painted, I'm going to go underneath the boat and get this bit painted. I'm also using a bigger roller to cover more area quicker. So my strategy is to start this end and go halfway in, and that's going to help me get the paint, because obviously I can't crawl around with the paint underneath.
Well, I mean, you could. It would just be super awkward.
It's not the easiest job, but one that needs doing nonetheless.
What you're witnessing here is proof that Brad can work, but he normally chooses not to work. When we're painting this boat, we are also making sure the tops and bottoms of the welds that are on the little bands are fully filled with that 2-pack paint, because we don't want any gaps that might cause rust in the future. We are now going to break the rules. We think leaving this tape in place for that long might cause problems, so we're just going to top up this little layer here. It is touch dry. We're going to top that up and then remove the tape. Our thinking is, because this paint dries so hard, if we allow it to fully cure and do a second coat, the chances are the tape's not going to come off very nicely. After all this, I made a boo-boo. But before it dries, let's get it off. Yep, I made a mistake. Don't judge me. I'm not a machine.
So after following all the complicated rules and instructions on the tape, we're now going to take it off and see if it's worked.
And if it doesn't work, frog tape will be getting a strongly worded letter. But Luckily for us, all of that prep we took seemed to be working.
Don't you see it here in my eyes? Believe me.
I'm just doing the booty,
And I am genuinely like, this is impressive.
that is a lovely light. I am going to rip this now though.
I think
Chris can take
So
some
you
of
want
the
me to
glory.
take that bit?
You know, if this side isn't as good, it wasn't me, it was Chris.
I'll be there to make it right. Anything in the world that can keep me tight. Say the word, I'll be there to make it right.
And getting a perfect paint line is as easy as that.
First coat of black is dry. Before we do the next coat, we're installing these sacrificial anodes. This particular anode has chose to lay down its life in the pursuit of prolonging the life of a beautiful mess. What a hero. With 6 sacrifices obtained, we start marking out their positions on the hull of our boat. Mark the position of our first anode, but because the boat is curved and this is definitely not curved, I think we're going to have to try and adjust these tabs to get it to fit nice and tight. The plan I've come up with is I'm going to put it on here, I'm going to clamp it there, and then I'm going to bend the end. I don't want to just start smacking it because I'm a bit worried about cracking the back of the anode. It might not, I don't know, but let's be careful. This way, using a clamp, I'm going to keep that force in one place. Less risk of damage. Tiny bit more on each. I think I'm going to get some big adjustables and twist. It's just got a tiny gap on the top and none on the bottom, and one on the bottom, none on the top. And it's... Maybe I'm being a little bit fussy with these, but I want it to be perfect. You may be wondering why we've got a laser coming down from this window. It's because when Nick come and surveyed the boat, it originally had 2 on the front, 2 on the back, 2 on the front, but he said we should add an extra one in the middle. I mean, technically it's 2 on the bow and 2 on the stern, but I'm sure you know what I mean when I say back and front. So we decided to add one directly under the center of one of our windows. That way it visually looks a lot nicer. Not that it really matters when it's in the water. That's all 6 of our anodes marked up. Next job is to clean the paint off of these little squares here. We decided rather than using a grinder, we're going to use our little belt sander that we've never really used up until this boat build. And that's because it's a lot neater. The reason I'm grinding the ends of these is if you look, you've got a tiny layer of surface rust. And when we weld these on, we want the cleanest connection we can get. So it's worth just cleaning them up. And a good connection means that they're going to do their job a lot better. As you may have guessed from my attire, it's now time to put our anodes permanently on our boat. With my 6 minutes of welding experience, we trusted that these weren't going to go anywhere with a few nice welds. So we get on with welding them to that clean metal, making sure they're welded solid and that they can do their job for a few years. Not sure how long these are meant to last, but I'm assuming it's quite some time. First 3 of our anodes, don't trip over that, are on, and there's 2 sides to every boat according to Brad, so we've got another 3 to do on the other side. There's a lot of different types of anodes, and for us, we've gone with magnesium. As the novice welder that I am, I've just discovered something to make my life much easier, and that is using a magnet to attach my ground clamp, because I've been trying to hold this, weld this, and Brad's not around ever, is he? You know what they say, every day is a school day. So now that we've got that little trick in our bag, let's explain what these do. These slow down the process of the rusting of our boat. We don't know the science behind it, but we know that's what they're for.
We're going to jump inside the boat where we've not been for a while and do a little bit of work. But first, we've got to tidy up.
Since we've been working on the outside of the boat, the inside has been a little bit neglected. So it's time for a good old clean.
The boat is clean. Now, when we installed this floor, we left a couple of bits that we needed to weld some supports on under here. So we're going to get them welded on now.
My plan is, we've got some 4mm steel plate. So as you can see now, look how bouncy that is. I'm not going to put them on the end, I'm just going to go as far as I can. So if we wedge this plate here in this pre-marked location, now you can see there's no bounce. So we're going to weld one there and one there. Unlike the main section of the floor, this won't see too much action, but it will be used for storage. So we want to make sure the floor is solid.
That is that job complete. We're going to move on and paint this floor in Bilge and locker paint. But because the red oxide we applied has fully cured, we're going to have to key the surface.
And we do that using some abrasive pads.
Now I'm going to go along and wipe it in some panel wipe.
Panel wipe, brake cleaner, same stuff. It all removes oil and dust. So that's exactly what we do. And then we can get on with mixing up our Bilge and locker paint. And unlike the top coat of our boat, this stuff is a single part paint, so it doesn't need a hardener. The reason we're taking the extra steps to add this on top of the zinc that we did is because when we purchased our boat, the bilge was filled with water. So if that was to happen again, at least it's got a lot of protection. Time for a general knowledge quiz. 1, I am sweating. 2, what were narrowboats originally invented for? And I don't want to see no cheating on Google. Now that we've done some general knowledge, I get on with painting the rest of the bilge in our Bilge and locker paint.
Now that we've got the measurements from inside the boat, I'm going to set up a table and start cutting them.
And is some 18mm marine ply. And this is what we're going to be using for our new floor. Don't worry, I didn't trust Brad with the actual measurements. These are just getting cut down rough.
And then we've got some minor splinters, so we're just going to rub them flat so it's completely immaculate with a bit of 180.
Even though we're recutting these edges, it's the effort that counts.
So now when it goes back in the boat, everything will be in order.
The reason we did that little step there is because you will always get a slight variation in board thickness. So if we keep them together, we've got a better chance of it being nice and flat. Now that Brad has cut up all of our sheets into smaller pieces, let us show you the plan we have to put our floor down. This small piece here is cut to the exact size we want, so it lands in the middle, but the other two are oversized, so we're going to put them on top and then we're going to scribe them so they fit the boat. Lovely. The reason we're scribing everything is because boats are not straight. They have curves and have slight differences in all of the edges. This way it'll all fit perfectly. We're doing all of this work because one of you guys can win it, because it's up for raffle at only £5 a ticket. And if you buy a ticket today, there's a chance you could win one of the instant prizes, because there's still over 120 left. If you want to get a ticket, head over to ukkarttech.com, or we'll put the link in the description below. With them all marked, the first thing I do is use my jigsaw to cut the rounded shapes, and then I use the track saw to shorten the pieces down. That way the straight edges stay perfectly straight, and the jigsaw does a better job of rounding things off. First board is in. I just want to show you what we've been doing. So this is a 1mm packer, and we've got that between the cuts that we've made. And then this is a 4mm packer, and that's what we've left around the edge of the boat. The reason we've done that is when the boat expands and contracts, not the wood so much, because this is marine ply, but the boat, it's not going to crush our floor. And that is exactly what had happened to the original floor. Here's how we're cutting them in. This centre one is exact size we want, and then the sides are too big, and I'm using something called a scribe. There's loads of different ones, doesn't matter what one. I've got 100mm, so too much, and I'm just going to use my pencil and follow the line of the boat. These are pretty straight, but I'd rather it be exact. Now I'm going to mark where it meets our other board, so you can see it meets right there. Because if you imagine this piece of wood, if I cut it now, that would go straight into that gap, but we're cutting this much off. So if we measure that, 85mm, we need to add that back on. And we also need to remember that part that I measured is actually touching the boat. So you need to measure from there. This is the difference. So if you was to do a straight line, you could definitely get away with it. So if you want to do a straight line, do a straight line. But look, you've got a gap there, and then you've got a gap here. So that's why we scribe it. And we're going to be cutting it at an angle. So if you look at the plate, that's how I'm cutting, like this. If you didn't do this, you wouldn't be able to have a 4mm expansion. You would have to have something like 10+ mil expansion. So this is going to help make all the floor look lovely. You can use an angle finder to get this angle, but if you're not sure, you can just overdo it. It's better to have too much of an angle than not enough. That way you'll have even more expansion on the bottom of your board. Couple of things that we're keeping an eye at as we work through the boat. One, that this stays nice and straight across the front, and our joints, so the cross joints that you wouldn't normally want, but we've got, are staying nice and consistent. So we've got 1mm that way, and we've got 2mm that way. The reason we've gone up to 2mm on those joints is because that is the width of our board. And for those that know, timber likes to expand across its grain. So we've just added a little bit more space for expansion, even though marine ply is pretty stable. I'm just going to show you the difference between having an angle or a square edge. So there's our expansion. If we just put this square edge up and make sure we've got the same expansion. So you can see the difference. These are the same space for expansion, except my one, nice and tight, and this one, you're going to lose all of your pound coins. And no one likes to lose their pound coins. We are actually taking another step on this floor to make it last even longer, but you won't see that till later on. Before we attempt the final row, which is going here, we need to get out the most annoying tool in the world and clean up some of the spray foam, because we want a nice clean edge underneath the door frame. We're actually doing something quite special with the door frames. Those ones are getting removed, but for now we just want to remove all of the spray foam so we can get a nice tight fit. I'm just measuring for this last piece, expecting it to be completely out of square, and it's perfect. 540mm all the way across. The reason we're so surprised is boats like this are not put together in the best way, so we was expecting some differences in the length on the sides, but it turns out this one's pretty good.
That is the majority of the floor cut into position for now. Now we've got to tackle this bit. No amount of scrubber-bibery, collardry, wizardry is going to get you that shape, so we're going to go back to the old school method and use some cardboard.
Once Brad had finished making up the most random words I'd ever heard, he got on with cutting out the shape of the front of our boat with some cardboard. Welcome to the pre-cut piece of wood. So this is the exact size, apparently. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just mark around the edge like this. I'm going to move in, so you can just see my marks are there, and that's where I'm actually going to... The reason I've moved the template in from its original marks is we need to allow for expansion. When Brad cut that template, he cut it exact. Oh, shiver me timbers. Last thing left to do was to make a little recess for the tap on the tank. I'll leave that under there for the new owners. Just joking.
Because we're walking up and down, the boards are moving around, so we're going to fix it down with these self-tappers.
Rob loved working with us so much he just randomly turns up now, so here's Rob who did all of our sound blasting. I then started to screw down our boards in their final position, and Rob sat there and made sure I did a good job of it. While we've been filming, we're always struggling with light, so we're trying to improve that, but one problem is the height of our building. It's about 8 or 9 metres up, so we've had to get this.
We're going to take you along for the ride for the first time in this thing. Lou, come on, let's go.
We didn't ask Lou to put the captain's hat on, he actually asked us. And once he had it on, he started operating the cherry picker like a professional.
We got this massive machine inside this building that's going to help us install the lights. Well, I'm not installing them, they are. Hit the light screen wall. We've got Adam here from Garage Style, and he's going to explain what lighting we're going to have to make filming better.
So we're going to be putting a 7 grid up there to make the filming lighting better.
That was magic.
It wasn't magic, Brad, I was the one that switched the plug on. So we're not having a 7 grid, we're actually having 2 7 grids. And the reason we need so much lighting is because the boat is so long. And this stuff goes together so easily.
One built, we're going to do another one.
These lights, they can be mounted flush. If you've got a flush ceiling, you can screw them straight up. But obviously, if you look up, we've got a very not straight ceiling or roof. So we're going to be hanging them on these steel cables. Lovely. And we're not going to, they was going to, because heights is definitely not my forte. We've sat the lights on one side of the boom, and then they're going to go up, and then they're going to screw the cables into the timber rafters. I don't know if they're rafters because it's summer. Anyway, that's the plan. Dan had turned up to help out, so Adam and Dan went up in the cherry picker to start putting in the little fixings.
And we're just going to go up to the top so we can get all the cables on.
Although it looks like there's 27 spectators at the bottom, it was for good reason. We was trying to help them position the lights because when you're up there, it's very hard to see where they need to be.
That's 2 fixings down, now we've got to do the rest.
And there was quite a few. We would never be able to do this without this cherry picker. Because we had the boat underneath, we needed the reach and the height.
Me and Dan are up here doing all this scary footage, so do not forget to subscribe.
Make sure, subscribe.
Wasn't scary from where I was standing. One light was hung from one side of the boat, and then we decided to move the cherry picker to the other side. That way it wasn't reaching out as far as it was originally.
Second set, going up.
That's the lights complete. We have one more thing to go with it.
And that is these. So these tiles are completely modular, so they're 400mm each and they click together. I've never installed these or anything like these before, so I definitely wanted to have a little go. And once I did, I realised how easily this system goes together. They're laying in the black flooring. I've picked up a mallet to try and help, but it won't let me. But we're also putting a red border around the whole thing to add a little bit of spice. And who doesn't love a little bit of spice? So we added in a little bit of red border before starting to infill with some more black. The guys, I think they've got a bit too comfortable here and they're starting to slack, so I've had to jump in to speed the process up. Here I am. The truth is, I just wanted to have a go. And once I did, I thoroughly enjoyed it actually. So I tried to help out where I could, but obviously these guys work together all the time, so sometimes you're just getting in their way. While two of them were filling in the full pieces, one was scribing in the little cuts. That way, it was a continuous process.
Hey, this machine here,
Lifesaver.
lifesaver. Can we show? Let's show the people how it works.
Let's have a go.
You mark your tile, and instead of like putting it for a jigsaw where it's really messy, slide it in this thing. Watch. Show me how quick it is. Boom. Mate, that's a game changer.
With Brad completely overwhelmed, the real work continued on the other side of the boat. One thing to note, our floor in our unit isn't the best, and this stuff just goes over the top of it so easily, and now the space is starting to look amazing.
That is the main floor area completed, but there's one more thing to add because, oh Phil, you just tripped over.
If only we had some ramps. Yep, it also comes with ramps for the edges. That way, there's no chance of tripping over like I did. Genuinely, I definitely didn't fake it. With all the floor laid, there was obviously rubbish, and the main man Dan come to collect that. And then Roy from Cartech turned up to help clean the boat for a final time. That's all we got time for in this episode. Massive thank you to little Alfie. Look what he made us. How nice is that? Anyways, we'll see you later.
Love you, bye.
Just remember you can win this boat for just £5 per entry. Link is in the description below. Love you, bye. Rob, can you explain what we're doing next?
I don't know what we're doing. I've just got here.